Hey guys, it's Vayan from Vayan in UK here. Like many others after following that epic saga of the king of Kickstarters known as Star Citizen, I became really intrigued into delving into the vast open of space to find glory and adventure. And as it happens, X-rebirth caught my eye only a few weeks ago. It seems to be coming first in line in an apparent revival of space sims. Now, everything I say, I feel needs to be taken with a huge caveat that I'm entirely new to space sims and the genre, and so I may find fault in things that other players applaud. And parts of my dissatisfaction is due to not researching what I was buying carefully, but I do feel that newcomers' view and wonder gives me appreciation as well, and hopefully someone can identify themselves in my views. I'm about 6 hours into the game right now, and if I know anything about the series, that's barely scratching even the surface. But this was what I felt during my first moments among the stars. After being greeted with some incredible music and some light battles with my mouse profiles, since the game just refuses to recognize extra mouse buttons, I immersed in an asteroid belt, and all I could think of was how absolutely gorgeous the vistas in the game are. It's stunning to see stars gleaming beyond the floating debris and space stations. The controls, they feel like second nature pretty fast. It's fluid, it's responsive, but I gotta say, people looking for simulation level controls, they might find it a little bit lacking. But to a first time space sim player like me, the addition of inertia dampening and decent mouse controls makes it pretty easy to pick up and play. My first real gripes that I noticed are pretty minor. The character animation and detailing would look bad in 2007, let alone in 2013. But most of the time you're presented with the flight view, so it doesn't bother me too much, and I'm more than willing to make allowances for open world games in details compared to big budget titles with very narrow scopes. Think Skyrim, for example. Some can live with the controls and the animations, some can't. The cockpit also gives me a bit of a cramped feeling, since there's no free view or third-person cameras, which I think is a pretty serious fault for a space sim, but I got used to it pretty fast. After you get past these gripes, I was ready to let the game take my breath away again when I flew past my first space station. The visuals are like nothing I've ever seen. There's such a great sense of scale and life in the abyss, and all I could think of was how I want to explore that world. The following hours were an up and down path of amazement and disappointment though, and it's hard to pinpoint where I stand so far. I'm definitely gonna keep playing, that's for sure, but at the moment I couldn't recommend a purchase even with tons of positives on its side, mainly due to some major game breaking issues I'd like to get over before anything else. The game has some issues with performance. It's continuing the ever worsening trend of an unfinished development, and even with a relatively beefy setup of a GTX 80 and an overclocked 6 core, it bogs down pretty bad. Choppy frame rates in interiors and any area with heavy stardust. The performance doesn't seem to be affected by settings either, though I haven't done a comparison with view distances yet, but from what I understand from Force's early impressions, it doesn't seem to affect it either. I also had 2 crashes in the first hour, and Steam community site after the first couple of hours had a 30-page thread on people failing to even launch the game. And at the time of writing this, I'm officially stuck in a mission that fails to progress the campaign. 3 reloads from past saves and I just can't seem to get past it. Other minor issues involve vanishing cursors, forcing you to restart the game, highways being empty, which causes long distance travel to slow down to a crawl, and keybinds stopping from working. Yet, after this cavalcade of issues, I'm really trying not to let it sour me too much, simply because the game does such a great job presenting you with this incredible world and in many ways unprecedented freedom. From my understanding, you can boot the game on your very first time to free mode, and you can quite literally create your own adventure doing whatever you want. The flight feels incredibly satisfying between traffic jams and asteroids. Combine that with breathtaking visuals. There's also this busy trading and freight traffic everywhere, transporting everything from arms to minerals, and you get to take part as soon as you procure your first freight ship. Mercenary and peacekeeping missions at every station, and freedom to tackle them at your whim, yet when one hand giveth, the other one taketh away. I'm 6 hours in, and I'm very much playing what feels like a tutorial. Sure, I've taken my time, so I might not be as far as many others, but it's this trend made ludicrous by Assassin's Creed 3 and its 20-hour tutorial of a campaign, and even though it's probably needed here, I don't think it's acceptable that I've only killed about 5-6 fighting ships at most, but spent much more time trying to figure out how to recruit a crew to my first cargo ship. It just feels unnecessarily clunky and slow. Also, after visiting about a dozen ships and stations, they seem almost carbon copies of each other. 3 different styles, ever so slightly modified from one another. Like I said in the very beginning, part of my gripes do stem from my lack of understanding of the title. I went in expecting to get to play as Han Solo and adventure on the edge of the galaxy. Instead, I have this ever-growing fear that instead I'm actually gonna delve into a trade simulation in space combined with crew and ship management. With that, my continued game time is very much tied to how forced the economy and management aspects are. And as much as I do like the ship you are given, I feel that you could definitely use some choices, maybe a modular design apart from just weapons, armor and gadgets. If the game wants to claim the title of free choice space games, it needs a much wider array of equipment available, especially if you get restricted to just one ship design. It just seems that the customization involves picking your companion ships and crews instead of your own craft, and personally I prefer a much more of a hands-on gameplay experience, but with that, I certainly think there's plenty of room in the market for both. I'm hoping to elaborate more once I have some more hours into the game, but at the moment at least, a lot of the game's future will rest on how much follow-through there will be in further development and the modding scene, both of which I understand to be very active from earlier X titles. It's early hours still, and some have even expressed that we just need to have patience, but honestly, I don't buy that line anymore. Development practices that allow games to come out in a clearly unfinished state are making the player feel more like a beta tester than a paying customer. That needs to stop, and hopefully people will vote with their wallets. Now this is coming from a guy who pre-ordered the product, so it can sound hypocritical, but in this case I wanted to make my first current events game video, and I was willing to take the risk. But it's a single player game, so there's no need to rush in. See what happens with the bugs and performance. Who knows, you might even get lucky and nab it on a discount a month or 2 down the line. Christmas Steam sales are coming, and sometimes games go on sale very early on. £40 is already more than, £10 above the average, so give it a try. Now to those who do brave it and are new to space sims like myself, I can offer a few tips that help me a lot. I'm sure there's plenty of other tips from more experienced players, but these help me out. Clicking on an enemy counts as locking on. It's mentioned only about 2 hours into the campaign, at least with my pacing, and it's only referred in conjunction with missiles. But locking on to an enemy allows the in-game setting of auto-aim to actually help you out. Otherwise you're spending a lot of time just trying to see a pixel-sized impact graphic, which is faint to begin with, since there's no impact indicators on the reticules. Secondly, remember that this is not a jet fighter dogfight. taking cover behind asteroids and other ships strafing up and down, left and right, is very much of a viable tactic, letting the enemy come to you. And it gives control of your survival to you instead of the AI aim capability, which seems to be pinpoint accurate at distances where you can only see a pixel-sized target. And lastly, watch your fire around space stations and security forces. Getting broadsided from space station defenses, in the very beginning at least, it hurts. It hurts a lot. Now here's me, sincerely, honestly hoping that the game will turn out okay. And not just because I invested 40 quid into it, but because there's so much promise there, and this hope is shared by so many people looking forward to a new X game. My next step will be to restart the campaign in hopes that it will fix it. People on the Steam community page mentioned that some of the patch fixes might not take effect until a new game is started, which again is pretty bad development in my opinion. But at least it's in the first 24 hours, so unless you pull an all-nighter playing it, you might not lose that much progress. I'm also planning to watch Force's first impressions video he posted yesterday on his YouTube channel Force Strategy Gaming. It's a nice 45-minute chunk of gameplay, you know, mostly uninterrupted as well. But the video I'm really hoping for is Total Biscuit's WTF. He's been a lifelong Space Sim fan, at least from what I understand, but he also has this busy schedule, which should give a pretty honest view and take into account that the game has to feel solid in its early hours as well, not just 50 hours in. I respect his opinions immensely, even though I don't share all of them, but I can't deny his points usually. Now, this has been Vayan from Vayanfin UK. Please rate if you found any of these helpful. More videos on my channel, and I'll catch you guys later.